Welcome back. Our next guest says the path of least resistance is still higher, right? He also adds many investors get hung up on what might happen, but the world's best and more successful investors, they always focus on what's likely to happen. Isn't that what Eddie Gabor said a little earlier? A very different proposition is what that is. And he's also got something to say about Uber and Tesla. Now, news is coming out of Texas. That's where Tesla is. This morning via Twitter, which is X, and other sources, anecdotally saying that the cost of a Tesla robo-taxi ride is going to be a fraction of that of Uber. He hasn't seen the Lyft mentioned there, but you can probably guess that they're going to be in the similar case of Uber. So that's an interesting thing, isn't it? Now, how about this? He's got a bit of research on cell phones. SpaceX, which is Tesla, just plunked down $17 billion for EchoStar's wireless licenses. Half cash, half stock. Starlink's direct-to-cell 5G is about to erase dead zones and, more importantly, turn Musk into the fourth national carrier with global reach. Again, another very interesting development. You don't want to bet against Elon, I don't think, right? We have him on all the time to tell us about all the new and upcoming stuff. That's Mr. Keith Fitz-Gerald coming to us all the way from the West Coast. Thank you very much, Keith. Seattle, Washington is his home. Appreciate you coming on. I loved your notes here this morning. I got to tell you, off the record here, I made a mistake once in my life and bet against Tesla. I bet against Elon Musk. I'll never do that again.
No, me neither. It's it's an old-fashioned widowmaker trade. You're going to feel good when you make it, but you're going to feel terrible when you get taken to the cleaners.
It's exactly right. So, your thoughts? You made some great points about. I loved what you had to say about Tesla and Uber. Why don't you share it with everybody else?
Well, I'd be happy to. The difference between what people think might happen and likely happen is very significant. And this is a great example because people are still obsessing over cars. They're obsessing over technology. Are they using radar? Are they using LiDAR? Are they using cameras? Are they using computers? Whatever. Who cares? Because when you get right down to it, Tesla is using its platform to obviate everybody else in a single move. What happens to Uber and to Lyft when humans are taken out of the equation? It's the biggest single variable cost they've got. You can send your car out to work if you're a Tesla owner. And on top of that, insurance is going to change, mobility is going to change, medical care is going to change, transport's going to change, all of which is being enabled by what Uncle Elon is doing now.
Right, and I think that the best thing that really taught me the lessons of life were, you look at the valuations, or at least the ratios for car companies, and then you look at it at Tesla, you can't put them in the same box. I mean, they're telling you just with the math that it's not a car company.
Well, but this is the point that Wall Street has fallen down on for more than a decade. I mean, you and I have known each other for several decades now, but for the last decade in particular, the markets haven't been about valuations. In many of Wall Street's classic analysis, if they can't put it into a box in a spreadsheet, then they pretend it doesn't exist. So they don't understand return to scale. They don't understand the move past technology. This is why they have such trouble with Apple. They can't understand that Apple and Tesla can change a few lines of code and add billions to the top and bottom line. So they go right back to doing what they do best, which is old-fashioned spreadsheet analysis and pretending it doesn't happen.
All right, so you saw that jobs revision. I didn't even put this in my notes, but I wanted to get your point of view. You saw that jobs revision we got from the BLS here earlier today, 911,000 phantom jobs. What are your thoughts?
Well, my first thought is that, here we go again. The data out of Washington, the Ministry of Whitewash, whatever you want to call it, is more cooked than a Christmas goose. So the first thing you got to do is get that off the table. And you got to understand where the jobs are going and why they're going somewhere. Well, whether they exist or they don't, my takeaway is, of course, they're going to get revised because they couldn't count them correctly in the first place. What I'm more interested in is where's the trend? Where's the theme? Which industries are consistent in losing or gaining? And how do you find something investable in that? And I look for companies that are going to succeed despite it all, not in spite of anything.
And we also saw in your notes that you don't think that Wall Street really has a handle on this new technology out there. What do you say about that?
No, they don't. I don't think, again, to my point here just a minute ago, I don't think Wall Street really understands what's going on. For example, the SpaceX acquisition of the satellite slots, they cannot understand that this, in fact, makes Musk a carrier. So they're still pretending to say, well, he's not telecommunications. That's a rocket company. That's not a car company. That's a this. He just became the global standard for telecommunications right in front of everybody, and nobody realizes it yet.
And I think you also made some great points when you said that he's actually buying income streams without anybody knowing it.
That's the other thing. He's playing because he wants the entire supply chain. He wants everything locked down, completely vertically integrated. So again, to Wall Street's point, they're stuck in their own past, right? They became legends in their own mind because they could use spreadsheets well. They could produce all kinds of fancy pants valuation models, not one of which vaguely reflects the world we're going into, in my humble opinion. Now, granted, they're not stupid. These are smart people, but they haven't adapted to the times. And digital investment in particular is the greatest recorded theme in investing history. And they're still not on board with it.
It's amazing. And it's one of those things that is going to go down. And I mean, I'm a big fan of this technology. I'm a big fan of artificial intelligence. We have to learn how to use it. And there's going to be some things that we get wrong, obviously. But, the problem I see is this, Keith, is that we're still trying to make these decisions on data that's been gathered in a very, very poor manner. And we've got the Fed waiting for some. I mean, can you imagine if the Fed had that jobs data 6 months ago? We would have had, rates would have been cut a long time ago. But no, here we are waiting for this stuff. So we need to see some big time changes. What say you?
Oh, I agree 100%. But this is part of the problem, right? What's really happening is not that the Fed isn't or isn't cutting or that the jobs are or aren't there. What's happening is you have this massive collision between data that ought to be operating at Silicon Valley speed, meaning right now, real time and accurate, with outdated methodologies and methods, spreadsheets, and PhDs who don't understand how real money works. So these are ships passing in the night. Of course, the Fed's going to be late. Of course, the Fed's going to be wrong because it doesn't have a proactive modeling capability and it doesn't have the ability to understand how money actually moves the markets, which I submit ought to be a Fed mandate.
So I'm going to leave you with this little ditty. We know about the jobs numbers, and we always talk about how much we can't rely on them. And a lot of them, it's a survey, right? And the percentage that we get back, the amount of people that participate, used to be around 60, 65%. Now it's between 30 and 35%, right? So now we're not getting we're getting about a third of those surveys back, number one. But number two is we're making big decisions on it. But I have to tell you that I was told that in some of the research I read, that some of those surveys come back via fax. Fax. So that's the world we're living in. I'll leave you with that. Thank you very much, Keith. You're awesome to have on. Keith Fitz-Gerald, you got a lot of fans to the Cow Guy Close.